Thank you for taking the time to join this fifth webinar of the Heritage Series. I am Lani Prajaraharja, the chairwoman of the Indonesian Diaspora Network, the Netherlands, and the Task Force Livable Cities is one of our task forces. I feel very honored to open this Zoom meeting, and I am so thankful to the team who initiates this webinar. They are Hasti Tarekat, Yulia Atmaja, and Vivi Chok. This webinar is a platform for Indonesians to share their activities in taking care of cultural heritage of various ways, this time about the spices route. So I won't take more time from you. Please enjoy this presentation. Thank you for your participation, and I will give back the screen to Mbak Hasti. Yeah. Thank you, Mbak Hasti.
Thank you. Selamat malam, friends in Indonesia and in Asia, probably, not only Indonesia. And good afternoon from friends from the Netherlands. My name is Hasti Tarekat. I'm also part of Indonesia Diaspora Netherlands. And thank you everyone to join, and thank you Ibu Lani, the chairperson of Indonesia Diaspora Netherlands, who has opened this webinar. And first of all, thank you to Ibu Dewi Kumorati from Yayasan Negeri Rempah, who is willing to share her valuable time and knowledge with us voluntarily. And also thank you for all participants who show interest in joining this webinar. This webinar is organized every month, every third Wednesday, to enhance communications and to update about cultural heritage movement from Indonesia. So we are trying to be on time at 1 o'clock, no matter how many participants. So I think it's also to appreciate those who are on time in joining this webinar. Dewi Kumuratik is the chairperson of Yayasan Negeri Rempah, or Negeri Rempah Foundations, based in Jakarta, and it is one of the most active NGOs foundation that giving attention to the history of the spices roots in Indonesia. And also, of course, if we talk about spices, we cannot talk only about Indonesia, but also relates to other countries along the way in the roots. But Dewi Kumorati will tell you more later. So probably Dewi Kumorati, you also can introduce yourself more extensively before you start the presentations. I give the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you in Netherlands, and good evening to those of you in Indonesia. First of all, I'd like to thank the Indonesian Diaspora Network Task for Livable City and Heritage Hands-On as the organizer of this heritage webinar series. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Dewi Kumorati Kusarjanto, and I will be sharing with all of you on my recent activities with communities, especially about the history of spice root. And my presentation is about the Spicework Narrative as a medium for production of knowledge. So shall I start the presentation, Ibu Hasti?
Yes, please. Yes.
I will share screen. Oh, wait. Is it already on? No?
Not yet. It takes time. Yes, now it's good.
Yes. as I mentioned to you before, my presentation is about the Spicework Narrative as a medium for production of knowledge. So this is a short, again, introduction. I'm currently active in Negeri Rempah Foundation, and I'm also active in Gelar Nusantara. It's a program consultant for Indonesian arts and culture. And I also active in School of Design Bina Nusantara University. Okay, so about the spice. Well, why spice root? Well, spice is not something foreign to Indonesians. And at least in the last 10 years or so, the collective memory of spices has suddenly burst into the imagination of Indonesian people. The biodiversity of the Indonesian archipelago, especially its spice plants, is believed to have played a role in shaping the spice trade routes that changed the history. So since 2015, I have been studying the dynamics of the interaction that between society, the government, and the market in reconstructing the narrative ideal imagination about Indonesia, and including how that imagination is narrated to redefine the identity that fosters nationalism, especially through this narrative. Again, so why spice root? So to begin with, we all probably know that Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country with highest level of diversity in the world, both in terms of culture and biodiversity. And it has 17,508 islands scattered in the equator, also 1,340 tribes and subtribes, speaks in more than 700 languages. That's according to the source from taken from the Ministry of Education and Culture. So as an inseparable part of humans, culture has a very broad and complex scope. So this includes religious and political systems, customs, architecture, language, works of art, and even gastronomy. And also Indonesia is a country with the largest Muslim population in the world. And on the diversity of the biodiversity, yeah, it's also, we are also blessed with this condition due to its geographical, its geological condition, because it's in a tropical climate located in the Ring of Fire, where a series of volcanic mountains, despite its eruption, of course, make the soil very fertile. And according to experts, at least more than 10,000 endemic plant species are found in Indonesia. And in other words, these are native Indonesian plants, are not found anywhere in the world. And according to Ethnobiological Society of Indonesia, probably it is assumed that more than 30,000 species qualifies as spices, and it should be taken more attention for research. So this is the basic condition why spice is more is very important to Indonesian, because many species grows in the archipelago. So according to research in 1999, it is thought that in the course of time and in a world scale, around 400 to 500 plant species is identified or qualifies as spice, used as spice. And in Southeast Asia itself, the number is approaching to 60%, 275 species, presumably. and most of the main tropical spices came from the east. And if Indonesia has the largest area in the Southeast Asian region, so we can imagine many species grows in Indonesian archipelago. And when we talk about spice, of course, you know, spice not only the root, but it's many part of the plant can be identified as spice, from the stem, the seed, the fruit, flower, leaf, rhizome, and more. Yeah, and why is it called spice? Because spice has certain qualities that has antioxidant content, and we use it for food, use it for medicine, and it's also have been used since ancient times for preserving many organic items. Yeah, so in many aspects of human life, we use spices. So back to the origin of spices. I'm not telling you that this Indonesia is the only origin. I mean, the region most in Southeast Asia, we have more plants that's identified as spice. But actually, spice could also grow in other parts of the world. But because this archipelago has a tropical climate, so it becomes ideal. So these are just a glimpse of some of the popular spices in Indonesia, because the space is limited. So what we do is making a simple infographic about the location of spices in Indonesia. Yeah? And it's only 25 species, but actually it's more than that. So again, after we see the geographical condition, I mean and also the wealth of species of spices in the region. So now let's take a look. What is spice root and how big is spice root? And if many people say, why do we say spice is changing the world history? Probably this is the bigger picture. So I'm not going to go through the history intensively, but I would like to show the big narrative that involves history, long history, way back then. So this is the spice root. Yeah. Well, according to some experts, spice root have developed long before the first century. So like ancient Egyptians used specific spice for mummification, and then also different kinds of spices for medicine. All of these spices have already consumed by people around the world. So that's before the first century. And according to early evidence as well, the Indonesian archipelago, there was also an important port in Sumatra region. It's called Barus, with specific commodity, which is camphor. And all of these historical evidence has become increasingly important to be discovered, because that gives us a broader idea about what spice root is. And also during the 4th century, also in the Southeast Asian region, where we don't have Indonesia yet at that time. Yeah, it's still different kingdoms, and then every kingdoms have their own political power, and all of these political power are using spices as the main commodity for exchange. And many historical accounts also mention that, for example, according to the Chinese chronicles, there was a port called Koying, and it's trading spices. Yeah? So these are the early evidence of how spice have become an important commodity back then. And during the 7th century to 10th century, we have Sriwijaya Kingdom, which was also a very important political power at that time. And one of the important note in Buddhism literacy. So because this important note and the exchange becoming very intense with China and India, and this become an important node, yeah, for exchange. Not only the commodity, but also culture. And during the 10th century to 16th century, also 13th century to 16th century, historical accounts also mention the existence of Majapahit Kingdom and Banten for their abundance in pepper, and also Majapahit, which also quite important political power in the region, which become the alliance in the region. And one of the important commodities besides spices, also rice, and also other yeah, we have spices, rice, and also during the Sriwijaya we have abundance of gold. Yeah, like Sumatra is called Swarnadipa, the island of gold, and then Java is called Jawadwipa, island of rice. So this history followed through the 16th century when the European came to Indonesian archipelago, and then spice become one of the important commodities to be monopolized. And because of this history, colonialization, finally we became Indonesia. So that's just a glimpse of how spices have always been part of the world history. So if we always mention spice root as a history which is related to European colonialism, actually the narrative, the spice root narrative, is bigger than the 16th century and beyond. So these are the narrative that has been popularly being interested by Indonesian people nowadays. Yeah? And so I would say that because of this broad history, broad spectrum of history, so it is quite, I think I agree if many also experts said that no commodity has played a more pivotal role in the development of modern civilization than spices, because of spices, let's not see spice as just the commodity, but how spice have changed this history as a means of cultural exchange. Yeah? So because of this exchange, because of this spice exchange, ideas has been exchanged, concept, knowledge, religion, language, many things have been exchanged in this cultural route. So this is why the Spicework narrative is very fascinating for Indonesian nowadays. So since 2015, I have been studying the dynamics of the interaction that occurs between the society, the government, and many other parties, including the market, how they reconstruct the ideal imagination about Indonesia, and how to redefine this identity and reproduce the nationalism. And in 2017, the Ministry of Education and Culture officially initiated the Spice Route proposal to as World Heritage to UNESCO. And the proposal to nominate Spice Route as World Heritage adds to the process of reproducing nationalism, yeah, and everybody's excited, and it brings together knowledge and experience between everybody, although of course everyone is free to reinterpret what Spice Route is and what it means to be Indonesia through this narrative. Yeah. So as I discussed with many friends and also the communities and also friends in UNESCO as well, yeah. One of the factors considered for the success of the nomination is public knowledge regarding the subject, and also including its implication in a broader context. So the cultural heritage should be beneficial to social culture and economy for local communities. So therefore, without proper knowledge, Indonesian cannot optimize benefits from the status of Spice Route. So literacy becomes very important from this point of view. And meanwhile, some of these volunteers also feels that the methods in studying humanities and social science in Indonesian secondary school, especially, have not encouraged the curiosity of students to learn more about history and culture. And sometimes these subjects are delivered in less interesting methods. So this conditions is also worsened by the increasingly open access information, such as cable television networks or social media in cyberspace. And those are instant provider for today's contemporary society. So this is also a challenging thing, how this cultural historical narrative, although seems capable of generating a new sense of nationalism, it's also giving a new meaning to be a nation, although every person may have varying degrees in understanding this narrative. So my involvement as part of community that promotes the Spicework Narrative began in 2014 and continued. And as I was involved as the exhibition coordinator and designer in the Spicework exhibition at the National Museum. And this movement then continued in a community that became a foreigner of an organization called Negeri Rempah. Negeri Rempah Community Network. It was not a foundation yet at that time. And the role of volunteers in this community was dominant in driving the literacy movement through the Spicework narrative, of course. And as volunteers, I found the opportunity to participate while observing and engaging in various interaction with all different kinds of communities. And many volunteers have been intensively involved in this community-based Spicework literacy activism until today. So, as I observe this activism, I'd like to refer briefly to the previous observation regarding three aspects, which is first is Spicework as a grand narrative, which this romantic history of the Spicework eventually gave rise to collective imagination about the greatness of a nation. And then also, this is where the role of the elites are not as important as the community, as grassroots communities. Everybody is free to interpret their history. And people are free to choose to be different or not to be different. And this is the arena for creativity in interpreting local history and culture. And also, the second one is the cultural historical narrative that places spice as the main commodity that shapes the history. Well, it's not always in a perspective of colonialism, European colonialism. So pre-colonial perspective began to emerge, enriching the narrative, as I mentioned before earlier in the presentation. So instead merely of commodity exchange, Spicework is about intercultural exchange that have contributed significantly to world civilization. And the third one is the constructed narrative of Spicework. So as I mentioned before, that not single interpretation, everybody is free to interpret their the ideal imagination. So it can seen as economy movement, social movement, everything is possible through this narrative. So to maintain its program sustainability in 2018, this community network become a foundation. So the activism continues. And this is a glimpse of what our activity today. So this community movement, as it becomes Negeri Rempah Foundation. So it continues the public enthusiasm in learning about our own history, our own culture. And the main narrative is carried out is about learning Indonesian diversity, because that is the most important thing, as we are very multicultural. So this idea also gives younger generation an understanding that being different is fine, because we have long history in exchanging cultures. And to identify this movement, we developed sort of a logo, the Jalur Rempah. Jalur Rempah literally means spice route, and easily applied in T-shirts, in pins, and all campaign activities. So everyone could feel that they are included in this literacy movement. So these are some of the volunteers. They are the one who's working on the infographics, working on the sharing sessions, and other activities. Yeah? So what we do is facilitating discussions, workshops, book publishing, festival, cultural expedition, and everything that could be done in a collaborative program, because we are trying to reach not in a certain city, only Jakarta, for example, but we are trying to reach throughout Indonesia, because this narrative is, we feel that this narrative suits the urgency to learn about multiculturalism for today's generation. So these are our programs. We have programs to support community empowerment. Included in these programs is also programs or activities that encourage small and medium enterprise, which are making spices as the commodity of spices for their economic, for their livelihood, yeah. And then also we have programs to support public learning. We have exhibitions, publishing, workshops, and also some of our volunteers developed a virtual museum. This is because due to the global pandemic recently, so more ideas in program development are established through this virtual possibilities. And the third is a program to support cultural literacy. So in this cluster, we have art collaboration, and then also we are facilitating sustainable tourism, yeah, and many other new media to as a means for sharing knowledge, especially in reintroducing local culture. And then the last one is programs to support policymaking and cultural diplomacy, where in this program cluster we have international forum. We have international forum on spice route, which is held annually, and this has already been 3 years since we have this program. So those are the cluster of programs. So this is just to give you an idea how the community interact with each other. This is during a cultural trip to Gorontalo, and we visit some of the local farmers in Bulamayo. And then also this is a sharing session in an informal way, but everybody joined, everybody volunteered, and everybody also contributed to the discussion about spices and any kinds related to spice, including culinary and gastronomy and anything else. Also, we have workshops, yeah, how to make memorabilia, or how to make soap out of spices, and also many other sharing sessions which are related to this spice route. But the most important is the knowledge sharing, not only just spices, but also how this community is could benefit from this exchange as well, to strengthen their own communities. So these are our network communities. We have still, this is a very slow movement here. But we already have 24 participating communities in the discussion in the group, and it's spread out from Sumatra to Maluku. So we have a WhatsApp group, and we have fruitful discussion about anything, but especially relating to the idea of Indonesia with very good literacy on history and culture. So as you can see, this community has different backgrounds. Some are archaeologists, some are farmers, some are chefs, some are culinary communities. So very diverse. So another program which is included in this community empowerment is Pasar Rempah. Pasar Rempah is accommodating communities that has products or services derived from the wealth of Indonesian spices, or those who are inspired by the narrative. So it's not only a small medium enterprise that have spice products, but also it could be book publishing or a tour operator in the spice producing region. So this spice idea would help them develop their livelihood economy in their own places. So we also have networks in many parts of Indonesia, from Sumatra to Papua. Mostly are small medium enterprise, but some are already established. And what I like about this community is we like to share each other. So we help each other, we collaborate in some programs, so we can also promoting each other's products, services, so we can also develop or support the economy. So another program is public learning programs, which is this is more to exhibition in public or virtual spaces, discussion forum, sharing sessions, and it's for public. Everybody's welcome. And our volunteers develop small exhibitions, sometimes mini exhibitions in whatever place we have. Donations from or contributions from a sponsor, sometimes mostly are in kinds, yeah, like for example in this you can see in this screen, it's in Kota Tua Heritage in Old Batavia, Jakarta. So we are doing a small exhibition in the Kantor Pos, yeah. It used to be the Kantor Pos, and we make infographics, big infographics, and everybody are welcome to visit, join the discussion, and mostly we invite experts or other communities or students or schools, yeah, to share what their experience after visiting the exhibition, and then sometimes followed by icip-icip, how do you call icip-icip? Food tasting, full of spices. So those kind of activities, these are the example, what we're doing so far. So our volunteers, these volunteers are in charge in making designs, like for example in this the middle picture, yeah. So it's not just infographics, but nowadays it should be Instagrammable. So these young volunteers actually came up and tell me that, can we make interactive exhibition, mini exhibition, and we have becak, we have a old bicycle, and then it's like scavenging whatever is useful for the exhibition, and to show many kinds of spices at the pasar, for example, at the market, traditional market. So those kind of imagination actually really helps younger generation to learn more about history. And also this is a workshop with actually we have also workshop is lower left with elementary students, yeah. Sometimes mostly as I observe, many Indonesian younger generation, sometimes they are not used to drink jamu. Jamu is a traditional spices, yeah, traditional herbs. And sometimes they don't know which is ginger, which is galangal, which is cinnamon. They have no idea. So what we do is we develop a small experiment here to make artwork from spices, so they can feel in their hand what it feels, what is turmeric like, what it is, how it is smell. And after they recognize what is spice, and then they can relate to the subject in school, history subject in school, so they can, yeah, they can relate. So for us, learning is not only at school, but also in this kind of activities. So another program that our volunteer have developed is cultural diplomacy. So in another segment, as I mentioned earlier, is the segmentation is for younger generation, also ibu-ibu families, yeah, with fun activities. In another segment, we also partnered with government, and we recommend the spice route history as a reference to develop some sort of cultural diplomacy theme based on intercultural dialogue. Yeah. And we believe that this spice route history, cultural diplomacy actually has been practiced way back then by individuals, communities up to the interstate level. And so why not use this spice route narrative as a reference for intercultural exchange and diplomacy. So our program is international forums, which I mentioned before that we have annual forum, but also we partner with UNESCO, ASEAN, and other communities which are more to academic communities where we exchange or we listen to their findings, and then these discussions we try to interpret, or we try to more a popular audience. So we try to relate different kinds of segment of audience, so that from this we can learn from each other. And we also have programs like traveling programs, art programs, and this is a program for children, yeah, developing games, new media like games, so that they understand different kinds of spices, and then they would relate to the subject of history or culture when they go to school. And talking about cultural programs, what's my favorite is tourism, yeah, cultural trips. We go to places like Ternate, Tidore, Banda, yeah, and then also we are developing Rumfius Trail, which is an interesting theme, because from this narrative, or from this previous research of the experts, the audience, yeah, more popular audience would relate well about the history and culture. So this is very exciting, because it doesn't feel like learning at school, but you travel together with archaeologists, with anthropologists, with photographer, with writers. So it becomes a very exciting program. So it's like educational cultural trip, something like that. That's my favorite. And also the culinary program. So these are, since 2018, these are our programs and community movements, and we collaborate with many communities throughout Indonesia, and still going on until today, and looking forward to many programs to come. Sorry, it's raining in Jakarta, so if you hear the lightning. So this is just a glimpse of our activities, yeah. And this is the recently we held International Forum on Spicework. So at the end of my presentation, so I'd like to see more Spicework, not just a romantic narrative. So I see that this is also a challenge. The challenge is, I think I'd like to think that the Spicework is more of a cultural sphere for cultural friendship, exchange, and intercultural understanding, and it transcends beyond space and time. And so as the Spicework has a very broad spectrum, I think it is time for us to start looking at the Spicework from a contextual perspective, so that this narrative is relevant to answer or to respond to contemporary challenges, such as food security, climate change, poverty alleviation, equality, and other various global challenges. So I think it is important that this kind of community activities be held continuously, so that we can learn and share from each other, read and listen from different perspectives. And also another thing is what kind of projection of values that is reflected through this spice route, because it's more than just a history. It should be more it should be gives our more value to not just history, but to our context today. So I also would like to mention that in the time of this global pandemic situation, actually, this situation gave rise to Indonesians as a momentum to learn more about our heritage. Today, more and more people want to know more about jamu, traditional herbs, because they need to increase their immunity, so to avoid the COVID. So, in another perspective, this is a very good momentum for us to learn about our heritage. So, and yeah, to nominate spice route as World Heritage, we see that this is the government's or Indonesia's intention to step up, take role, and safeguard the legacy of human civilization. But if we say this is World Heritage, then it means that it is no longer the legacy belonging to only Indonesians, but it became the world's heritage, and the sustainability is entrusted to all of us. So that's the challenge of making the spice route as World Heritage. So this is the convention concerning the protection of the World Cultural and Natural Heritage, UNESCO. And as I finish my presentation, I'd like to invite all of you to join this activism, promoting intercultural understanding through Spicework Narrative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dewi Kumawati, or Indonesian way is Mbak Kumawati. Thank you very much. I've learned a lot about the spices story, not only history, but also the contemporary meanings about it. So while we are waiting for questions and comments and inputs or feedbacks from the audience, I could start discussions with you that might also trigger the participants probably to ask questions or to share their thoughts about this. And for all participants, please feel free to share your opinions or your questions through the chats. Or yes, I see the hand. I see the hand. Don't worry. Or raise your hand like Sidilana Manggala. Please go ahead, Sidilana Manggala. It would be nice to talk directly to the speaker. Hello, Sidilana Manggala.
Hello, hi.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, Mas Sidi.
Hey. Ini Mbak Rati, my sister. Hey Pak Leon, Bu Wiwi, apa kabar semua? Hai Mbak Hasti.
Okay.
Terima kasih. Should we do English?
Yes, please, in English, yes.
In Anglais, okay, in Anglais. Let's do it in Anglais. I can also do it in Dutch, but it's okay. So I had this meeting, this wonderful meeting this morning with the people of Ministry of Education and Culture about the spice route itself. So I think it's really prominent opportunity for diaspora to join this holistic mission of Indonesia for spice route, because in Indonesia itself we are struggling to identify the most prospect commodity to become a highlight for center of activities. It's like the last slide of Mbak Rati about the cinnamon. because the opportunity is there, and we hope to, well, as me and Mbak Rati, as we've been friends for quite some time, we hope to do more with the EDN in this case, and we're hoping to collaborate also from either from Spiceland Indonesia, in which we already had the MOU with the Negeri Rempah Foundation, or from the newest part of Sustainable Spices Initiative Indonesia. So looking forward for any collaboration in the near future. Thank you.
By the way, CD, could you introduce yourself and your institutions so we got the idea of the context?
Okay, sure. So first of all, didn't mention my name. So my name is Sidi Ranamgala. I'm currently based in Ghent University as a bioscience engineer in Belgium. I'm also affiliated with some institutions in either in Indonesia or in Africa or in Belgium itself. So I'm the executive director of Sustainable Spices Initiative Indonesia, and the home base of SSI Global is in Utrecht, but we also have 4 platforms, including Indonesia. And I'm also the founder of Spiceland Indonesia, which is in Belgium. And I'm also the chairman of Beyond Moringa Indonesia. And the last one, I'm the director of agriculture for an NGO based in Nigeria. So if you want to talk about plant and spices from the botanical part, I can fulfill your needs, basically.
We are very happy and honored to have you on board, CD.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ibu Kumawati, would you like to respond to him?
Yes. Mas CD, I call him Mas CD, yeah. Yes, we work together, yeah, and we have lots of discussion about spices as well. And thank you for the constant support in this initiative. So looking forward to next program, of course, indeed, Mas CD.
Thank you. The second is Adis. Would you like to say directly to the Ibu Kumawati? Yeah, please. And please introduce yourself so we know the context of your questions.
Thank you, Mbak Hasti, and thank you also, Mbak Dewi, for the wonderful presentation and the organizer for organizing this talk. So my name is Gadis Fitriana Putri, or you can simply call me Adis. I'm currently a research associate at the Netherlands Institute for Conservation, Art and Science. My background is on cultural materials conservation, so not directly related to regional history or spice route per se, but I'm quite interested. So the research that we're currently doing at NICAS for short is looking at the global infrastructure for heritage, cultural heritage science, and part of the topic that we're interested in is looking at how not only local communities care, or as what you're doing with Negeri Rempah advocates for, learning from, looking back to archives and materials for the story. And my question to you, Mbak Rati, is more of a forward visioning of the activities that you're doing right now. Because you mentioned in your conclusion that part of the challenge is how to, I think, extend or just develop more than the grand narrative usually, assigned to, research on Rempah, which is, as you mentioned, nationalism, and etc. And also how to continue forward with the, making Jalur Rempah as World Heritage. And I'm wondering if not only in Negeri Rempah, but you yourself and seeing other movements and activism in Indonesia, moving forward, is there a vision to engage more with the other regions around Southeast Asia? Because when you showcase the map, it's quite apparent that we also have that, history. So maybe I keep it simple like that for now, but yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe if you do have that vision, what kind of engagement that could be possible to do in the future?
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Adis. Yes, well, this initiative, I would see that this initiative is actually the main objective is literacy, because well, today we have Spicework, and Spicework has it's nominated by the government, but actually it's not about the Spicework itself as for the foundation, yeah, because the most important is the literacy, the learning tradition, keeping or growing, nurturing the learning traditions among Indonesian, especially the younger ones, because when we see or we think about the nomination itself, what's the use for Indonesians, for us, if we don't understand the history, the culture, but it's not about just that. But if the learning tradition is there, people would understand how to relate it to the contemporary context. So it's not just about history and culture, but it's about how to reinterpret this perspective so that it would be beneficial and sustainable to the community. That's the first one. So the main goal is literacy. Second, regarding on your question about what's next to the Spicework nomination, well, actually, we have no affiliation with the government. Yeah, this this foundation is purely volunteer, community-based, but the idea of the nomination is it's very encouraging, because it helps boost the enthusiasm, and then it boosts the spirit to move on, yeah, with many other programs. And also regarding that Spicework nomination, we are also working with the government relating to cultural diplomacy. As we understand that this nomination is not about only Indonesia. This is a nomination about cultural roots. So it also depends on other countries that also give, how to say, also they are in, they can give recommendation, maybe recommendation or something like agreeing to this proposal, yeah, because again, it's about cultural root. So in our next program, we are planning to collaborate with different communities in India and China, but it's still very still starting. We're still doing correspondence, but we are optimistic that it should be done, because it's about the interconnectivity that makes spice route is realized. So, and again, as I mentioned before, that this is a challenge because sometimes we see spice route. This is how I see in Indonesia. Yeah, sometimes it's all about glorification. Yes, we have great history, and then so what? So it takes a critical thinking so we can apa ya, to contextualize spice route that would be useful for our problems today. So again, the challenge is literacy. So I think that's my opinion. Thank you.
And based on your answers just now, what about your visions working with the European countries? Since many of us come from the Netherlands, and we know that also Netherlands is part of the history of spices route in Indonesia. What have you done in cooperating with Netherlands?
Oh, sure. Yes, of course. European countries is also, especially Netherlands. We consider the Netherlands is our closest relation. We have close relation. So we divide this cultural diplomacy program from 2020 to 2024. And on the third year, we are developing collaborations with European countries. And of course, it should be starting from now, yeah. And this webinar heritage series is a very good opportunity for us to introduce our activism, and of course, I'm glad to discuss further on what kind of opportunities that we can make in the future, because most of the data that we gather, we are very much supported with the data that we found from Leiden University, for example. Like Leiden University have support us in International Forum on Spice Route. British Council also support us in International Forum on Spice Route. So, but we divide, we prioritize in the program because of some collaboration are more difficult to start. But we believe with the European countries, it's more open, yeah, it's more easier. So of course, we are welcome, and I feel that European countries could support, could become part of this spice route activities.
Yes. Is there any questions or feedback from the audience? Please go ahead. And while you are thinking or collecting your courage to ask, I would like to continue about these cooperations with, especially with the Netherlands. Do Indonesians think about spice history as a contested heritage, of in the informal way, a dark heritage? Is there any discussions spice history as a contested history, or Indonesians are very relaxed about it?
Yes, yeah. Some consider Spicework Narrative should be broadened up into pre-colonial perspective, because if we highlight more in the colonial perspective, it could be dark, yeah. But but we cannot deny that we are, despite the dark history, but we still have cultural exchange. So those those who are very more against the colonial narrative of Spicework actually is, I would see that it's because the pre-colonial narrative is not very well recognized by Indonesians. So that's why in this spice route narrative, we try to broaden the spectrum. So it's not only from the colonial era, but we stretch it from the pre-colonial era. So we can talk about more of intercultural exchange. So
why I ask this, maybe my friends from the Netherlands can correct me if I'm wrong. The issues of slavery and decolonizations are very hot in Netherlands now. And I think the history of spices is also related to repressions, forced labors and that kind of things. But I hardly see, or actually I didn't see any points about those in your presentation or activities. So, but it also can be that Indonesia has its own angle, which is slavery or reparations are not a part of the discussions. So that's very interesting how two countries share the same history, have different angles. So it is fine to be different, but I just want to update you. And probably Sidi Rana Menggala, very beautiful name, who also live in Europe, also probably could enrich our discussions about these topics. But anyway, anyone would like to say something? Maybe our friends from the Netherlands who involved in cooperations with Indonesia, formal or informal way. Otherwise, I would like to ask you about very interesting about how the issues of spices relate to global challenges, especially during the pandemic. Oh, I see Dan. Would you like to say something or comment on behalf of yourselves? No need to be on behalf of your institution. So that would be lighter.
Thank you, Hasti. And I also see another hand is raised. So.
Okay. So okay. Richard first or Dan first?
Dan, please.
Oh, Dan.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. My name is Dan Lavies. I work for the Government Cultural Heritage Agency in the Netherlands. And I am already a long friend of Hasti, so thank you for the invitation. And also thank you for the presentation. And what I found very interesting is that you like in my work, I try to care for heritage, but of course, this is not a goal in itself. Heritage has to be a tool to benefit society. And I think your presentation showed this angle, which we always have to remember that we're not doing it for the heritage, but we're doing it for the people and for societal goals. So that was, I think, very strongly highlighted and also an inspiration how we could do such a thing. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
Yes, and of course I also recognize what Hasti says, but yes, and sometimes when looking into Indonesian exhibitions in museums or in literature, I was always surprised by the focus on the European connection, and of course it's easily explained through history, but I find it very inspiring and of course also very wise to broaden up the scope and to go as well in time as in space. So to look into the inter-Asian connections and also of course looking for much further back than Dutch or Portuguese traders. And of course I think this is the way forward for Indonesia. So I recognize this in your presentation as well. So just compliments to you, and thank you,
Thank you.
for sharing it with us.
And I think I would like to add a little bit that few years back, the Netherlands, the institutions where done work has come to Jakarta to meet with the UNESCO Jakarta and also your Yayasan Negeri Rempah foundations, discuss about nominations to assist in the making a nomination dossier for the as a world.
Yes, but also talking about this, I noticed the nomination dossier from Jakarta, which is about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago now. Also there, I was surprised reading it that the focus was very much on the Dutch situation, and only very and the inter-Asian connection was hardly as highlighted as the European connection. So in a sense, I was surprised that you could almost call it like a colonial perspective written down by an Indonesian pen, which I hope together we can leave behind us. And because it's not, I don't believe it's not, I don't believe it's the most useful or the most inspiring perspective to keep using in the coming decades.
Well, it's 4 years later now. I think Kumulatif will be leading the adjustment of the content of the nomination dossier. We will put other angles than the European also. Thank you, Dan, for sharing. Please go ahead, Richard de Freitas. Yeah, could you introduce yourself first, please? Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, Richard from The Hague. Well, since about 5-6 years, I'm already involved in the spices, in the trade of the spices between Indonesia and Europe. I was invited by the Dewan Rempah Indonesia. It's an office of the Ministry of Pertanian.
Oh, yeah.
Promoted, and first we started with, of course, their goal is export. Yeah? They want to sell. They have a different objective than Europe.
Yes.
Of course. But in that case, we first started with organizing the companies to comply to the European regulation for importing their goods. I mean, you need permits, you need sustainability, you need testing. It's like the Badan POM, but you have the same here in the Netherlands, of course, because a spice from Indonesia can have a different effect on Asians or on Europeans. So we can, when I'm in Indonesia, I take jamus, and I feel fine with it, but for some other people from Europe, it can be poisonous, because there are some effects that are different. I don't know about that, but that's all. On the second place, about the narrative, I'm also connected to a group of historians in Indonesia, Arangkula it's called, and they are also, this group is doing research on the Malukus, on the spices.
Yes.
I probably you know them.
Yes.
To take away, so what I heard from Mr. Dan Leffis about the colonial perspective, well, be assured, the Indonesians don't see the colonial period as a period on its own. They see it as a part of the total history. It starts with Mojapahit, it starts with Mataram. And the 200, 350 years with the Dutch is just a period in the thousands of years of development. So, and if I talk with Indonesians about the Dutch period, they only talk about the positive things and never about the negative things. So I really think that the Dutch have a feeling about how people in Indonesia think about the colonialism is different from what the people there think about it. So, yeah, okay, maybe something to think about that. Yeah, and if you want to see about the narrative, yeah, you know that it's actually the whole development of the globalization started with the Rempah, because in the past, in the Middle Ages, in the previous period, it was not it was possible to make long trips by sea because of scorbut. The food was not conserved because of the spices what the Arabs brought. The Arabs occupied the south of Portugal. So they trade spices with the Portuguese and so the Arabs. So that's why you can find it in the how you call it, in the pyramids, because a long time ago already existed. Also, the spice route over the land. You don't mention the spice route over the land by the Chinese and Marco Polo and his influence on the spices for the eastern of Europe, because they came in the eastern of Europe, of course. So there's a lot of narrative, and to say it honestly, if they were not looking, if Spain was not in war with the Arabs and they were not looking for the spices on their own, Columbus would never sail to the east to find the Northeast, because that is the reason why they went, and that's why it was subsidized by the King of Portugal, Spain, that he was supported to try to find a way for the spices, and not for America or India, as they called it. And in the place is also, Columbus was not the first one who sailed around the world. There was an author called Henrique Maluku, or Henrique Bifuru. And he was around the world long before Columbus did that. So if you want to talk about the narrative of the spices and where it came from, I mean, without the spices, there was no global world as we know it now.
Yeah, sure.
That is the biggest narrative, and it started with the spices in Indonesia, not only the Maluku, of course, but also the other spices. That was it. So maybe that is something to mention, and maybe you can contact the Directorate Rempah Indonesia or other to collaborate, because there are a lot of initiatives doing the same. And that's why I always wonder, why don't you just join forces and make it a collective activity, and possibly you can get help or support from the Ministry of Agriculture or the Directorate Rempah.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, we did a collaborative initiative with many communities, and yes, what you have mentioned about the narrative, and then Dewan Rempah also, we also collaborate in some of our programs. So actually, we're open to many collaboration with many parties, and again, because this foundation is a community-based initiative, so we have no affiliation with any government bodies. So we find it easier to connect with grassroots communities and take them into this initiative and be part of this spice route initiative. And of course, this spice route has become hype lately in Indonesia, because everybody's suddenly talking about spice, and due to this nomination, the Ministry of Education and Culture also encourage cultural bodies in different parts of Indonesia, in each province, to find a narrative related to spice route. So nowadays, the spice route narrative has become very, very broad. And I think it's also interesting because it means that the people are more and more aware that they can relate to their own history. They can make meaning to their own history. And this grand narrative is how you say it? It's like the backbone, of the big narrative. But I think this narrative is very fascinating to Indonesian, and it gives them encouragement to create more creativity. So, for example, besides the initiative from the Ministry of Culture and Education on nominating the spice route, also the coordinating ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, and also the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, also initiated a program called Spice Up the World, if you have heard the campaign, Spice Up the World. So it's more to trade, tourism, investment perspective on Spicework Narrative, which is also in a way, yes, it's interesting because it's really different with the narrative that is built by the Ministry of Education of Culture, which is more ideological, yeah, because what they're trying to find is the novelty or the significance of this narrative to the world, how outstanding universal values that are that has to be found, that is important to nominate for the nomination. But besides this movement, the Spice Up the World movement is more to encourage the economy, so towards the economy. So it's very interesting how different ministries interpret this narrative with their own perspective. But I feel that the people should have the literacy so that they know how to how is it?
To connect.
To anticipate, to connect, yeah, to relate to these different kinds of programs from the ministries, from the government.
So I think you mean what with literacy is a proximity of Indonesian individuals with the spices history. Proximity. They see relations. What is between spice for me, for myself? That's a proximity. Okay, please, Diana, would you like to share your insights? And Pak Richard, are you okay? Or would you like to comment before CD?
I'm okay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Please, CD, go ahead.
So let me support you, my dear sister. So basically, Richard, everything what's going on in Indonesia is more or less ceremonial. I mean, what we do here is really focus on the action base. And we want to introduce spices because most of the spices companies are also based in Holland, like a station and so forth. And we want to really embed the story, what Rati is doing and me also doing. So it has more flavor to the taste of spices itself, because one of the key features of spices that we want to share to the world is not only the spices itself, but also the story, where it come from, and those kind of lineage with the true origin, like Pala and Banda. And the story is really important because it's basically a storytelling, what we have and what we want to do in the future. And that is our approach, actually. I mean, that is ours. I mean, cinnamon, you cannot find cinnamon from Indonesia. It's the best, highest quality in the world. And nutmeg is the highest qualities in the world. And we are lacking those kind of indigenous story that we want to share about the livelihood, about the people, about the community, about the culture. This kind of purposes by the Negeri Rempah Foundation that wants to deliver that, and we are really supporting on their objective. Basically that's it that I like to add. Thank you.
Yeah, and probably you can stay a bit with us.
Sure.
I would like to ask this to both of you, Kumarati and CD. What about the role of spices during the pandemic in daily life, especially about food resilience? I think for Indonesian context, it is very important to show how spices can support food resilience of the people of Indonesia. Please go ahead.
Yeah, that's interesting, Mbak Hasti. Yeah, this global pandemic, it's actually making Indonesian more aware of their heritage. Like for example, this happens in my own family. When the pandemic comes, and actually my mother always consumed jamu, traditional herbs, and I also consume jamu sometimes, gitu ya. But during the pandemic, our whole family decided to consume more jamu, like turmeric, curcuma, ginger, whatever it takes to maintain the immunity, body immunity. But what's interesting is my own daughter, which is she's secondary school, she was a bit reluctant because for her, bitter is not good. The taste bitter is not good. Meanwhile, me, my mother, and the elderly, the older generation find that bitter is just one of the vocabulary of taste. And this is interestingly that younger generations are alienated through this vocabulary of taste. And finally, I conduct a small research with some of my friends, which are also belonging to the Pasar Rempah community with Suwe Ora Jamu. We make, well, not me, but she, Nova, my colleague, she made a 28 days jamu. Yeah? It has to be consumed every day in a row with different taste, beginning with the mild taste of jamu, and then second week a more stronger, and then on the third week becomes more extreme, like brotowali, the most bitter ones, brotowali, sambiloto, and then the fourth week again mild. And you know what's interesting? We share this product to young generations, and also to one YouTuber, Instagram celebrity, and he's around 20 years old, and he's consuming this jamu each day. And what's interesting is, although it is supported with endorser, like a celebrity, I don't know how to call it, brand ambassador or whatever, but actually what's the excitement which we found is they do not necessarily try the jamu, but they are celebrating that. Well, it's like a challenge, just merely a challenge of consuming bitter jamu. That's it. So it makes me wonder that, again, we have to teach this younger generation about the vocabulary of taste, and this is the time. This pandemic situation is the time. So finally, again, this is I experimented this in my own family. We made a simple jamu with mild taste, but we consume it every day. And until around 3 months, my daughter feels like, oh, okay, I'm getting used to this. So this is again literacy by experience, which is important for the younger generations to let them know again, or recognize what jamu means to Indonesian, and they are nowadays alienated from this traditional knowledge. So,
Sidi, would you like to comment? Spices and food resilience.
Yeah, sure. So basically, that's Rati saying about her family, but I'm going to go more global. So what is Indonesia lacking to persuade people in the world is about our scientific literacy. I mean, just like palm oil, like in Holland or in Belgium, all around Europe, we are lacking of scientific evidence that we are doing a sustainable way. That is the same case with the spices, because every month the EU standards for spices is really becoming difficult and quite unmeasurable for Indonesian spices companies or growers to follow. So what we need to do nowadays is just support the scientific evidence that we are, I mean, basically we are doing good and more resilient towards the needs of the market. I mean, they're action-based, like not only here in Ghent University, but also from Wageningen and Leiden, that support the initiative of Indonesian Spices Outgrower Scheme. And that is one of the opportunity that we want to do as IDE, and also I can see that as an opportunity, and with Richard here and with Mr. Leon and so forth, that we can, it's a collaboration, because as you can go to your kitchen shelf, I believe there's some kind of spices like nutmeg and pepper that's actually coming from Indonesia, and we need your support in this to become our voice in the society, that stop putting us in the corner, but feel free to support us in any way possible is a way of your capital approach. So we cannot do it. I mean, I cannot do it alone. Rati cannot do it alone. So we need some way of agglomeration on this, togetherness. And I mean, if you are, from the Western communities still putting us in the corner, it's quite difficult for us. I mean, for Indonesian to promote this spice route in the modern way. I mean, spice route is the past, is the history, but we're living in the current days that we are still promoting the spice route, and it needs your support. That's what I can say.
If there is evidence of shared heritage between Indonesia and Netherlands, and that is the kitchen. Because the most delicious cookies of the Netherlands, speculas.
Yeah, I mean, of course,
it contains spices.
Cinnamon. Like
not only cinnamon. It's called speculas ingredients. It contains of several spices, and I learned to eat. A bloemkool. What is that? Bloemkool? I don't know in English.
Yeah,
Wiwi, help me. And then my Dutch,
cauliflower.
Cauliflower. And my Dutch family always put a nutmeg on it. So,
yeah.
And many more. So a kitchen actually. That's the most evidence of our shared heritage. No need to prove. No need to anything. And by the way, you ask support from us in the Netherlands, but I also would like Indonesians to reflect of themselves whether they do good enough to do the archiving, to do the documentations about spices route, and about whether if you are good enough to explore more, so you have a nomination dossier which is not European centrist. So here in the Netherlands, we have done our best with our archives. You can find anything about archives. It's fascinating, the archives in the Netherlands about spices. What about in Indonesia? And Rati, you show your networks from Papua to Aceh. What about archives about spices in those places?
Yes.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, before you ask help or cooperation from the Netherlands, I think please reflect yourselves how well you have been doing there in Indonesia. Why I say this, I want to be hard also because it's also questions to myself, because I work also on the grassroots level in Indonesia like you all, and I see that actually Indonesians are quite lazy to really work on producing something. We do not take care well about our archives.
Yes.
All programs are ad hoc and short terms, so there is no long-term visions and persistence in producing something essential. So that's my reflections. Please,
yes, I agree.
and
No,
comment?
no, no, no. Actually, Mahasti, to some extent, I do agree with you because we work also with communities, grassroots communities, yeah, and we need to encourage them more to make documentations and then to put notes, make notes on whatever living traditions, for example, photographs, video, those kind of things. Because yes, I do agree with you. We take for granted the need for documentation. So and that's why I understand why the Ministry of Education of Culture encourage the government bodies in the different parts of Indonesia in 34 provinces to encourage scholars, local scholars, to make research on their culture, history, traditions. So I see that as a start. But yes, I do agree with you that most of Indonesians took for granted the importance of making documentations. So I also agree that the Netherlands provide many datas that are very useful in reconstructing the narrative. For example, we are publishing a book called "The Tales of the Lands Beneath the Winds." I don't know if you
once again the little what?
Tales of the Lands.
Oh,
Tales of the Lands Beneath the Winds. And the pictures, the illustration, it's we take it for many pictures from the Netherlands documentation. So this really helps us to make the narrative apa ya?
More compact.
What about archives from Jakarta? The National Archives in Jakarta, do they have good archives about
good bureaucracy offer the
so
bureaucracy?
it's easier to access archives from the Netherlands than from Jakarta.
Yes.
Even you are Indonesians.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also with me the same case. If I want to study more about plants, I need to go to Leiden library to know more about the typical one kind of things that are beforehand being studied. I mean, but we are growing. I mean, and basically from my scientific and agriculture, the development of IoT, Internet of Things, it's really growing, and just samples. So every movement, the commodity from farm to fork, it will be documented and put in a big ledger in which we can see the tracking of the whole system. It's a live satellite monitor system to know where the pepper is coming from Indonesia. So it's a satellite base. And this kind of movements that we from spices, all kind of spices in Indonesia, that we're heading on towards the movement. It's a new method of jalur rempah, but in the modern time, using blockchains, IoT, and things. So we can put all of the documentation in that ledger
Probably you
step by
can put
step.
the link into the chat. So for us.
Yes.
Richard, please go ahead with the Vatican archives.
Yes.
We don't know about it. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Because in the time of the Portuguese, the Catholics were there, Saint Francis was there, etc. And they, you know, the Jesuits, they write everything down. They have everything documented. So if you really information that's not available everywhere, we can try to find it. But to come back to what Sidi said about the trade, and well, we did some research on the spice trade here in the Netherlands, and you're right, there are some big companies, but they have a certain policy. They want to keep a monopoly. It's very difficult to enter the spice market in Europe if you have no connections. So you can never come in with them. The only way we found out, and they don't like that, but that is actually the only way, is that instead of exporting the raw material like the whole nutmeg or the chain cake, we can produce the end product locally, because the people there need work. If you want to develop the people, you have to start with developing the economics, the social economic position. And there was just a remark that the people in India are a bit lazy. They are not lazy, they are demotivated.
Yeah. Neglected. They're neglected.
Aborted everything. So the only thing we can do is to help them to solve that problem. And it can only be done if you are in lead or in charge. They need our spices, and we are willing to give it to them, but we don't make any demands. We can say to a Sleek Grove, okay, we have the spice, we have the best doctor, we can sell it to you as an end product with a document, or we make a pamphlet with the heritage, where it comes from, where you can use it for. But you never expect the Dutch or the commercial traders to do that for us. They will never do that. They want to keep the profit. That's all they want.
Yeah. That is where I come in. I'm for SSI Indonesia. I have the power. So feel free.
Yes.
I mean, we're connected with SSI Global, in which major companies and spices that are involved in, and that is my thing also to meet and match. So hopefully, with Marathi also to connect.
We can make a connection with platform.
Sure.
In her presentations mentioned also one important point, that spices as a starting point to think about values, and I think identity as Indonesians, and what it means to ourselves. And I also noticed a strong movement in Indonesia to the forgotten certain things, agricultural products, including spices, which were disappeared, and they now try to replant, to revive, and to reproduce, to repackage, so become it's available for the mass productions. So I think that's a very good thing because of this movement. It's also its manifestations of how Indonesians interpret history, become useful things in their daily lives, reviving what disappeared. And that's quite a movement. Did you notice about it? Like Jafara, for example. Well, I mean, it is for the upper class, but I think the essence is very good, that they revive the forgotten agricultural products. From all Indonesias, and that is just one example. I can mention hundreds of examples. What do you think about this?
Well, I know Jafara, and they are also related to our program, Pasar Rempah program, and also involved in our international forum on spice route. Yes, I think what like the forgotten or endangered how do you call it, endangered spices, it should be we should learn more. And what Jafara do with other, not only spices, Jafara did an excellent initiative in preserving or conservating local produce endemic plants, including some spices. And I think we need more people like that. Again, it's the literacy. So that's why I think that the most challenging is the literacy, because if we have many people who are aware that we have this abundance of this wealth of spices, then we could do something, make it beneficial for our life in Indonesia.
Thank you, thank you. I see some people in the audience which probably would you like to say something. I don't know what your relations with the spices history. So, but please, Pak Cahyo Suprayogo, are you doing something with spices? I don't know, but please, Leon. I see Leon. Leon is go. It's just go.
Leon just had to attend another meeting, Mbak Hasni.
Yes. Thank you, no problem.
He really appreciates your talk, Mbak Kumorati, and perhaps you can hold another presentation for the entire Diaspora Network Netherlands. Hopefully we can talk about it later on.
Since we have here also Dan Lavis from the Cultural Heritage Agency of the Netherlands, probably we can use the last few minutes before we finish the webinar, Kumorati, to share with us what are your plans in the coming year, and what are the possibilities for cooperation with the Netherlands?
Yeah, so for now we are focusing in cultural diplomacy program, which is our focus is to encourage more involvement from the communities, but also we are going to explore more research with international communities, so we can develop the interconnectivity of this cultural this so it's not just a narrative, but it's the interconnectivity. We can realize this interconnectivity through this upcoming research. But of course, the vision is again just for the nomination. So if the nomination is have succeeded in 2024, that's the goal of the of Indonesian government. What's next? So actually, our foundation is more than that. It's beyond this Spicework for nomination, but Spicework is the theme, so that Indonesian could learn more about their root, heritage root, their history, their culture. So program will not stop until the nomination has succeeded, but we still go on further, because we are sure that literacy is not it takes more than 2 years, 3 years. It's a sustainable effort. It should be sustainable. So I think that's what our plan. We still keep we start with a humble beginning. So we will maintain to have high goals, but of course it has to be beneficial to the community.
Thank you. I have some questions for CD from Belgium.
I'm here.
What are the plans of your activities related to the spice route in the coming years, and what you expect for cooperations with the Netherlands?
Well, of course, I mean, let's MOU. That's basically what I can say, because from my part, for spice, it's not for moringa, yes, but we are growing strong. I mean, we are outgrowing ourselves from Indonesia and our partners and members. So hopefully the diaspora in Netherlands can welcome us for this initiative. Besides for yeah, anything. I mean, we are looking your hands to help our hands together. It's not. It's a, let's make it simple. Everything. That's what I hope.
From Indonesia diaspora, would you like to respond, or probably done before we close?
Yeah, I have one more practical question, which I didn't really get so far. So maybe you can. So the next course is very clear, and like I said, I find it very inspiring. But when we talk about the UNESCO nomination, are we talking about one nomination or a string of nominations? Can you be a little bit more on what are we talking about, which are connected to this narrative? Is there already a plan on this?
It's a very good question, Dan, because this is we are actually our foundation is not in charge of this nomination actually, but we are supporting the government for the cultural diplomacy. So if I'm not mistaken, from the Ministry of Education of Culture, they are still trying to find the best approach, and also the narrative. I mean, the to present to UNESCO, I think, because to be honest, we are still also waiting for the ministry to share with us as well the point of view, the point of view of the narrative to be driven to the nomination. As I mentioned before, is it of course it's a pre-colonial perspective and broadened to pre-colonial perspective, but specifically we are still waiting for further briefing.
Yeah, well,
okay, it's very exciting, and maybe we can also cooperate. We have to see in what way, but yeah, it's a very inspiring story. So I wish you all the best of luck, of course, to succeed also in the national cooperation, but also maybe an international cooperation for the dossier.
Yeah,
thank you.
Anyway, yesterday there was a big webinars with the Director General of Culture about spices route. Richard, did you join the webinar? Richard, did you join the webinar yesterday with all the dignitaries from Indonesia?
Yes, it was yesterday.
And what did they say about nominations?
Well, you know how it is with seminars, you get a lot of percentages, but
it's ceremonial. It was more ceremonial.
You have to promote it with or with this or with that. And
okay.
You need
to I know. Thank you, Richard. Yeah.
Nobody is. I mean, there's so much of rabbits put something in a place the sun don't shine, as we say in Holland.
I know. That's why I like to talk more to the grassroots level, like Kumawati, because they work more than talking. Well, but anyway.
The group from Unpati related to the new port was projected in Ambon and Lamba Ikan Nasional, and I'm more involved in regulations, permits from the International Maritime Organization, safety, security, And now we started that with Unpati, and we are cooperating with Marin in Wageningen and University of Adelaide. And that may be important for CD Juga, because University of Adelaide, Flinders University, have a fellow, is called Rudolf Wirawan. He is a member of IDM Australia, and he's an expert in blockchain, Industry 4.0, etc. And he's already implementing that in Indonesia, in Kudus, for example, with the universities, with University of Indonesia, with Gajah Mada. So you can connect with him. It's as well. And we have the program, and we are now introducing the S2 education from University of Adelaide into Unpati.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go abroad to have a real European international.
Yeah, I know. I mean, for me, it's also quite strange because in Czech Republic, there's even a major department that is focused on spices.
Yeah.
And you don't have that in Indonesia. I mean, let's say for IPB, the Agriculture University in Bogor, they don't have it. And even in Brawijaya. So I think the commitment towards spices, it should be from bottom up, not top down. So that is where we come in, Richard. And I think in all this forum, we are strongly committed towards that. So let's make it happen. And that's my last saying.
Well, I think it's very good that the young generations, I consider you, CD, and Mbak Kumawati still our young generation, like us.
I mean,
that we are aware of the spices history, and who knows that we can spread the virus, and who knows also we can also inspire the academic world.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
create a study of spices in IPB in Bogor, for examples. But this kind of constructive conversations, which is our goal through these webinars, Indonesia Diaspora Netherlands. So I would like to thank you, appreciate for your time and your genuine interest to really communicate to each other. As a speaker, Ibu Kumawati, and also other participants, it's a very, very encouraging to see that we could do this regularly. And next month, the discussions is about how Indonesia trying to revive or to renovate the former Palace of Dendels in Jakarta, the Ministry of Finance. It's a huge project, financed 100% of it by Indonesians, because the Dutch always thinks when there is a renovations of colonial buildings, it is paid by the Netherlands. No, it's 100% Indonesian finance. So that's the topic. It's the 16th of March, the third Wednesday at the same time. Thank you very much. And if you would like to see, to have the power, yeah, thank you very much. If you would like to access to have the PowerPoint of Kumawati, you can open the link which in the chat. So all the PowerPoints on the webinar series are available on Google Class. So see you next month. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Kumawati.